Hello friends, welcome to Jurisprudence. In this video, I will be covering legal realism theory of law. According to realist theory, law is what the judges decide. Dr. Friedman considers John Chipman Gray and Oliver Wendell Holmes as the mental fathers of the realist movement. This theory concentrates on a scientific observation of law in actual practice, which means that they focus on how law works in real life situations based on actual cases and decisions. They aim to understand the law through practical observation rather than just theoretical rules. They reject the traditional definition of law, meaning that they focus on how court decisions are made and how judges apply the law in real cases. They study the forces which influence judges in reaching their decisions. Dear friends, judges examine various factors such as their personal beliefs, experiences, and social influences in reaching their decisions. They believe these forces play a key role in how judges interpret the law. Law is the product of many factors. According to legal realists, the law is what judges decide in real cases influenced by social, economical, and personal factors. Now let's focus on key aspects of legal realism. Number 1. Law is not a set of fixed rules. Legal realists believe that the law is not a fixed set of rules to follow exactly. Instead, judges' personal experiences, biases, and the situation of each case influence their decisions. Number 2. Judicial discretion. Legal realists say that judges have the freedom to interpret the law in their own way. Judges apply their discretionary power and not just a letter of law. Law is not final to reach a particular decision, so the judges take social, economical, and political factors in reaching their decisions. Number 3. Focus on law in action. Legal realists separate the law as it is written and how it is used in real life. They believe the way the law works in practice is more important than just the written rules. So according to them, law on paper and law in practice is different. Number 4. The role of social and economic context. Legal realists believe that laws should be understood in the context of society, economics, and politics. They argue that decisions are influenced by the situations and conditions around each case, not just the law itself. Number 5. Rejection of legal formalism. Legal realists disagree with the idea that the law should always be applied strictly based on written rules. They believe this approach is unrealistic and suggests a more flexible way of handling real life situations. For example, Keshwananda Bharati versus State of Kerala. In this landmark case, the Supreme Court of India addressed the power of Parliament to amend the Constitution. The court's ruling established the basic structure doctrine which limits Parliament's power to alter the fundamental framework of the Constitution. So the decision was not merely based on the strict text of the Constitution but also on the evolving political and social realities of the time. The judgment reflected the influence of societal values and the political climate as the court sought to preserve the Constitution's integrity in the face of changing political forces. In this case, the judges considered the social need to protect fundamental rights from unrestricted amendments by Parliament. They took into account the economic and political context of India at the time, balancing social reforms with constitutional stability. Personal judicial philosophies influenced their decision to establish the basic structure doctrine, ensuring that key principles of the Constitution remained intact. Maneka Gandhi versus Union of India. Maneka Gandhi challenged the suspension of her passport, arguing that it violated her fundamental rights under Article 21 and 19 of the Indian Constitution. The Supreme Court expanded the interpretation of Article 21, ruling that the right to life and personal liberty included a broader scope of rights, including the right to travel and the right to be heard. So the court's decision was influenced by the growing awareness of civil liberties and the need for a broad and flexible interpretation of fundamental rights rather than adhering strictly to the original text of the Constitution. This reflects a legal realism where the law adapts to the needs of society. Indian Young Lawyers Association versus the State of Kerala, 2018, known as the Sabrimala case. This case revolved around the prohibition of women from entering the Sabrimala temple. The Supreme Court ruled that the practice violated the right to equality and freedom of religion. The court's decision was influenced by evolving interpretations of equality and gender rights as well as the growing prominence of women's rights movements in India. While the law in books emphasized religious practices, the court's decision was guided by broader societal values and the need to ensure equality and non-discrimination. This illustrates the realist belief that legal decisions should reflect the social and political climate. Dear friends, in this case, the judges used their discretionary power to balance the right to equality with religious freedom, recognizing that gender discrimination could not be justified under the Constitution. They considered the social context where women's rights for equal treatment were gaining momentum and the cultural context of temple practices. The court focused on the evolution of social norms and how constitutional values must guide modern interpretation of religious practices. Shaira Bano vs. Union of India 2017 Triple Talaq case. In this case, the Supreme Court of India declared that the practice of instant triple talaq unconstitutional. The court recognized that the practice was harmful to women and violated their constitutional rights even though it had been a traditional religious practice for centuries. The judgment highlighted the importance of social justice and equality in legal decisions and how laws must be interpreted in the light of current social realities, particularly concerning gender equality. Dear friends, in this case, the judges exercised their discretionary power by prioritizing women's fundamental rights over traditional religious practices. They acknowledged the harmful impact of instant triple talaq on women's dignity and equality, even though it was a part of religious custom. By doing so, they interpreted the law in a way that aligned with constitutional values of justice and gender equality rather than strictly adhering to religious practices. Now let's focus on criticisms of legal realism. Number 1. Judicial activism. Legal realism can sometimes be criticized for fostering judicial activism because judges are not the lawmakers and justice must be according to the law. Number 2. Inconsistency in decisions. Since legal realism emphasizes judicial discretion, critics argue that it could lead to inconsistency in legal decisions, making it harder for people to predict outcomes and for laws to be applied uniformly. Number 3. Overemphasis on social context. Legal realists may be criticized for overemphasizing social, political and economic context, potentially undermining the objectivity and impartiality of the law. Number 4. Undermines legal consistency. Since legal realists believe that judges' personal biases and social factors influence their decisions, critics claim that this undermines the idea of consistent objective legal principles. Number 5. Difficulty in implementation. Since legal realism emphasizes the social, economical and personal factors influencing judgments, critics argue that it can be difficult to establish clear guidelines for how law should be applied, leading to uncertainty and potential misuse.